When the tech upstart from City A came to give a lecture at our school, the system in my head finally came to life. I hugged my thighs. No, I'm not going to do a mission. Tech upstarts don't like me, as a brainless person like me. Can't I just be a female college student, who broadcasts live on the internet? System, I don't even want to talk about you. Your main quest is to raid the male protagonist. Who let you broadcast live every day? Me, somebody's brushing me with a rocket. You know, I've been short of money, since I was a kid. System, when the host on stage finished introducing the tech upstart, I heard an exclamation. Raising his eyes, he bumped into the male protagonist Louis Eleanor walking in. I wiped my saliva. I don't think the rocket is so important anymore. I mainly want to complete the main quest, without delaying your year-end bonus. Louis Eleanor doesn't listen to what artificial intelligence says. It's so handsome. I just want to kiss. When I searched for a few questions about artificial intelligence on the spot, and was about to discuss academics with him, I found that I couldn't get close to him at all. There are too many people. There are not only female classmates, but also male classmates. Dead legs. Squeeze it. Louis Eleanor seems to be extremely patient, but tries to keep his body out of contact with other people. When it was finally my turn, he was called away by his assistant. Scold. What is one of my shoes that has been squeezed out? I ran to his car with my shoes in my hand, and when I knocked on the window, he frowned. Louis Eleanor, my name is Clara Wallace. I'm interested in the lecture you shared. Can I get in the car and talk to you about a few questions? He glanced at the question in my notebook. The voice was cold. These questions should be able to come out of Baidu. His assistant laughed out loud out of the blue. It's silent. After the car drove away, the system shared with me a few books about artificial intelligence. System, I've been transferred to the Flower City next door. I'll come back to see you later. I pursed my mouth. The system doesn't have any hope that I'll be able to get the job done. Louis Eleanor's company has a deep cooperation with the school, so when the teacher asked the school committee to deliver the papers to Louis Eleanor, I cut off my beard. In the evening, I found a pair of glasses with only frames, boiled water makeup, and a high ponytail. Ding. Sure enough, it's a mansion, and the doorbell is so bright. I love it. Ding dong. After a long time, no one opened the door. Isn't it? It's 9 o'clock in the evening, and Louis Eleanor hasn't come home yet. When I was deflated and just squatted down, the door suddenly opened. I lifted the frame and Louis Eleanor appeared in front of me in a gray hoodie. He glanced at me. It's still shockingly handsome, but the lines seem to be more sharp than the previous 2 days. It looks a little whiter. I took a breath. I immediately got up and said, Louis Eleanor, this is school material. After squinting for a long time, I was a little dizzy in front of my eyes, and I didn't wait for me, so I immediately planted it in his arms. When I opened my eyes again, Louis Eleanor took the material in one hand and put the other in his arms around me. Sure enough, no man can accept the pitiful pure boiled water makeup. I was a little dizzy when I met his dark eyes and the slightly curled corners of his mouth. Why is it completely different from the previous 2 days? I don't know if it's an illusion, but his fingers even pinched my waist. Are you all right? I thought to myself. Sure enough, men are two faces, day and night. I said weakly, Louis Eleanor, I think I'm suffering from hypoglycemia. He raised an eyebrow and asked, is there anything I can do for you? Louis Eleanor at night was so easy to take the bait. While I was still muttering, he had already handed the chocolate to him. I looked around the villa and suddenly made up my mind that I must make this mansion half of mine. Poor Louis Eleanor didn't know he was being toyed with by me. I silently ate my chocolate while I mentally imagined my business map. Is chocolate delicious? Louis Eleanor asked me suddenly. I nodded. It's delicious. He stared at my lips for a moment, his Adam's apple sliding up and down. I didn't know why, so I broke a piece of the past. Do you want to eat? He smiled and said, I don't eat sweets. Yes, but he looked like he wanted to eat. Louis Eleanor turned the subject. What's your name? Sure enough, he had forgotten about me. I took a bite of the chocolate and mumbled, my name is Clara Wallace. Louis Eleanor, you forget, we've met. Louis Eleanor's eyes darkened. Oh, then I shouldn't be. Louis Eleanor at night is so good to talk to. Discover the rules. Apply the rules. Louis Eleanor, it's too late. I'm going back. Is it easy to get a taxi here? Louis Eleanor thought for a moment and shook his head. It's hard to get a taxi. My eyes lit up and I said, can you send me back to school? You know, it's not safe for girls to walk alone at night. He looked at me and smiled. It's not safe. Yes. System. I just said that no man can refuse me. I felt pity for Louis Eleanor, who probably thought I was as innocent as I looked. As everyone knows, hunters always appear as prey. After getting on the bus, I deliberately threw my campus card in the back seat while wearing my seatbelt. Louis Eleanor seemed to glance back. I was afraid that he would find out, so I immediately said, oh, why can't I fasten the seat belt? Louis Eleanor was distracted and reached out to fasten my seat belt. As my fingertips rubbed against the back of my hand, I cautiously said, Louis Eleanor, do you think I'm stupid? He hooked the corners of his mouth. It's not stupid. Spoiled. You see, there is no man who doesn't eat stupid beauties. I took the opportunity to add his friend. When I got out of the car, I said to Louis Eleanor, bye Louis Eleanor. Stay safe when driving. Louis Eleanor's eyes narrowed and he nodded. I'm sure he's definitely interesting to me. So the next night, I went to the bar, got myself half drunk, and then made a voice call to Louis Eleanor. It only rang, and it was connected. Louis Eleanor. I deliberately said it vaguely. Hey, my school card seems to have been left in your car. Can you send it to me? The other party was silent for a second. Where are you now? I'm at the bar, and they say that if you have a campus card, you can get a 10% discount. Louis Eleanor was silent for a long time before asking, Clara Wallace, are you drunk? What a stupidity, Louis Eleanor. And now I find out I'm drunk. How did you become a tech upstart? I obediently waited at the booth for Louis Eleanor to come over. While sobering up, I soaked my collar with spirits. I don't believe Louis Eleanor can't be fooled by me. I saw Louis Eleanor coming from afar, and I stood up to greet him. The steps were unstable, and I fell into his arms. The old trick was repeated, and he didn't dodge. Why do you drink so much? I started crying quietly. Woo woo. I can't find a job. I don't have a job. I can't live anymore. Louis Eleanor, I can't afford to pay for this drink. I'll have to look for you. I forced out a few tears. Women are drunk for 3 points, and you will be heartbroken. Finally, Louis Eleanor glanced at me with a subtle look and bought the bill for me. I was half trapped in Louis Eleanor and taken away by him. When I finally got in the car, Louis Eleanor threw me in the back seat and sat down himself, lifted his eyelids, to smile or not. The heating in the car was ample, and I felt stuffy. Reached for the car window, but I was held down by Louis Eleanor. He wouldn't let me open the window. He wanted to heat me to death. My breathing grew rapid, and my white neck was dyed a peach-like red. I looked at him, but I read a strong lust in his eyes. You don't want to be here, do you? I'm a little apprehensive. Tentatively asked him. Louis Eleanor, aren't you hot? He smiled, a natural sense of aggression between his eyebrows. He said, you look hotter than I am. I tentatively kissed him on the corner of the mouth again, and he didn't refuse. I was overjoyed that Louis Eleanor, who was ascetic in appearance, was so easy to tackle. I'm here at the mansion. Bonus, I'm coming. Hey. Why is there no progress prompt? When I hesitated, I was already pressed into the back seat by Louis Eleanor. Not satisfied with the shallow taste just now, the kiss of the siege swept in. His bare farms burn people. The lips and teeth are grinding, and the liquid intersects. I'm about to suffocate. Why haven't I had a progress prompt yet? Louis Eleanor's eyes were dark and terrifying, and he looked like he was about to tear me apart. What's going on? Grabbing the gap in my breath, I muttered, Louis Eleanor. Louis Eleanor didn't mean to answer at all. The substitute driver came, and he let go of me, who was about to fall. Scoop it back into your seat and straighten it up. Wiped the corners of my mouth and asked darkly, back to school? Yes, back to school. It's a bit too fast, right? But why isn't there a progress prompt? Could it be that kissing is just a mouthpiece for Louis Eleanor? I looked at him suspiciously. Was it really a joke? I couldn't think of an answer when I got to the school gate, so I glanced at Louis Eleanor. He has a high nose and deep eyes, and sharp eyebrows. It seems to be thinking about something. Unbuckled his seat belt. His heart was crossed, and he pecked at the corner of Louis Eleanor's mouth with lightning speed. Let's go. Damn, The sound is deafening. Even the driver turned his head in shock, not daring to look at Louis Eleanor's face. He climbed out of the car. Why hasn't the progress of the strategy been prompted yet? System, you get out of here. The phone prompt sounds. I received an offer from Louis Eleanor. Hey, the books shared by the system are kind of useful. There's a taste of a domineering president's pretty secretary. And Louis Eleanor is quite good at playing. When I wore a white shirt and hip-wrapping skirt, and gold-rimmed glasses to bring coffee to Louis Eleanor, his brow furrowed. I remember that the eldest brother in the live broadcast room said that my pure lust is so damned that it will kill people. Louis Eleanor not satisfied. In between his coffees, I looked around to see if there was any, whispered in Louis Eleanor's ear. Louis Eleanor, can I not go back to school tonight? Louis Eleanor seemed hesitant. He took a sip of coffee and asked, why don't you go back to school and sleep in the bridge hole? Yes. Why is there coldness in his eyes? Such an obvious hint that he couldn't understand. Really, or pretended. I cheekily said, I mean, can I go home with you? I didn't have a home when I was a kid. And your house is quite big. Louis Eleanor looked at me, his eyes becoming more and more hesitant, as if to say, this intern seems to be sick. No, Clara Wallace, you don't want to do anything other than work. The personnel sister just came in, seeing me half pressed to Louis Eleanor's ear. Louis Eleanor's face was dark. My sister almost threw the coffee out with me. Finally, I was kicked out. It's so nervous. This man was so lingering when he kissed me yesterday and coaxed me to open my mouth. Now turn your face and don't admit it. Abstinence during the day and heavy lust at night. You have a dual personality, right? Sister Personnel came out, looked at me, and spoke bitterly. Clara Wallace, we Louis Eleanor are very clean, and Louis Eleanor has been married since childhood. What you just did, he said he didn't see it, seeing that I was absent-minded. My personnel sister added, don't do this next time. I took out my phone, and sent a message to Louis Eleanor. Louis Eleanor, did you kiss me yesterday? After a while, he replied, it's pretty cool. Me, I'm upset. After touching the fish for a while, Louis Eleanor came over and knocked on my desk. Let's go. Go see the client. I let out an, oh, just sent me a message back, obviously in a terrible way. And now I'm fake it again. Louis Eleanor drove over, and my first reaction was, a different car. Also, the president always has so many luxury cars to drive. The smell and furnishings in the car seem to be different. All in all, the difference between a Louis Eleanor during the day and a Louis Eleanor at night is huge. I couldn't turn my head around, so I just asked him, Louis Eleanor, maybe you've seen a neurologist. There is no possibility of split personality. Louis Eleanor, I didn't see the customer. I came to the mall. Louis Eleanor looked me down from a young age, gave me a credit card. I frantically suppressed the upturned corners of my mouth, because the system said before that in this world, all items and funds obtained through normal channels can be brought back to the real world. Realizing that Louis Eleanor doesn't like pure lust, I picked a few sets of princess style, college style, workplace style, gentle style, and literary style. Therefore, it is difficult to say, what should I choose? Buy them all. When I went to try on clothes, he said it was for the company's image. But when I came out of the fitting room, a hint of amazement flashed in his calm and unwavering eyes. Louis Eleanor is really pretending. After swiping the card, Louis Eleanor took it back. I blinked and my eyes widened. Louis Eleanor, when we're together in the future, will you give me that card? Louis Eleanor paused as he took the bag, and looked at me in disbelief. I've heard that you have a marriage contract since you were a child. Right, but in the TV series, a tyrant like you will never end up with that person. I slowly analyzed Louis Eleanor. You see, we're all like that, so you can give me that card, or give a car. You know, it's more than an hour to commute from school. I continued to blink my big eyes, not noticing Louis Eleanor's composedness. He put his shopping bag in the trunk and asked, what are we? Since I was a child, I have adhered to the attitude of asking for people, and he played the president of the abstinence department for a day today, so he should be tired. I felt like he was hinting at me. I stepped on my feet, and kissed him in a daze. This time it wasn't as loud as last time. It's just that I can see Louis Eleanor's face clearly. He looked at me hatefully. With a cold face, he turned around, closed the door, and started the accelerator, leaving me alone and messy. I suspect that I just didn't kiss him, but pulled out the safety pin of a bomb. He blew up. Woo woo. If you don't give it, you won't give it. He just threw me here. I messaged Louis Eleanor, do you dislike me? Louis Eleanor, I like it. Me, but you just got angry, and you left me here. It's so late, there is no bus and subway, and it is expensive to take a taxi. Louis Eleanor, where are you now? Didn't he know where to throw me? I sent him a locator, then replied, don't come. I see that this place is quite close to the river. I am dead and go to jump into the river. Half an hour later, the familiar Bentley appeared in front of me. Louis Eleanor came and looked at me. I was about to get angry, but he hugged me. I'm sorry, I sighed. Seriously, Louis Eleanor, go check it out. I really suspect you're sick. Louis Eleanor rubbed it in my ear and said, well, I'm sick. Don't call it by that name. It's weird. It's not called a name. It's called what? He continued to whisper in my ear. Would you like to call me baby? Me. Have you watched me live? I love it. I just don't like it to show other people. There are a lot of strange eyes. I have to make money to pay for tuition. You know, my family is not in a good condition. It's true. I just came through, without a father or mother, a high school student on subsistence allowance. The system says that survival romance games are like this. That's why I'm going to college while streaming. He pressed me into his arms and said, it's okay to call me brother. You call me brother when I give gifts. Wait, the one who brushed me the rocket has always been a fixed person. As soon as I started broadcasting, he came up on time to brush my rockets. It turns out that he is the big brother who is stupid, and has a lot of money. Brother, then I want this. I embarrassedly pointed to the Bentley. When he gave me the keys to the Bentley, I burst into tears, a handful of snot and tears. He said, I don't have a house to live in. My college roommates are talking bad about me, behind my back because of my live broadcast. He kissed my eyes. Yes, I was ecstatic inside. When I walked with him by the river, I was repeatedly sure that we were in love. Right. Louis Eleanor would nod his head and say yes very solemnly. I really don't understand. But why isn't the progress of the strategy responding? What's the progress? Louis Eleanor looked at me, with a darker face. I'm supposed to be angry, right? Does this person not speak at all? On the surface, he coaxed me to be his girlfriend, but secretly he has a lot of girlfriends, and his heart is not here. That's why the progress of the strategy has always been zero. I mumbled, nothing. When the street lights were a little dim, Louis Eleanor took my hand, and pulled me into his arms. He asked, do you want to kiss? A scheming man. I deliberately tilted my head back. I just kissed you, and you're angry. Louis Eleanor's face became a little delicate, clasped his hand on my head, and lowered his head and kissed it, fierce and domineering. I don't know how long it took, but the sound of my heartbeat was the sound of my heartbeat on the entire riverbank. Finally I covered my somewhat torn lips, and looked at him accusingly. He pressed me into his arms and looked paranoid. You are not allowed to kiss anyone but me. It's inexplicable. Where is there anyone else? He's going to suffocate me. I broke free of him and gasped. Are you a dog? Gnawing and biting. His eyes were dark, and his gaze rested on my lips for a moment. Isn't it cool this time? I huffed and walked forward. It's very upset, and I realized that there was no change in the progress of the strategy this time. What went wrong? If you know how to kiss and kiss with a dead mouth, can you increase the progress? Is Louis Eleanor just teasing me? He took my hand. I'm sorry. I shook off his hand. I hate you. My face looked a little red because of his anger, and he paused, and smiled. I like you too. Has this person read it all over again? He slowly approached me. Will you try again? I thought about it. Maybe he prefers the heroine who takes the initiative. Seeing that my expression was loose, his eyebrows and eyes widened, and he breathed a sigh of relief. I gently pressed it to his lips. Progress is zero. Wrap your arms around his waist and call him baby warmly. Progress is zero. This time, Louis Eleanor gave me the initiative, but there was still no progress. I didn't give up, and my breathing and movements slowly became rapid, and there was no interest in it. Louis Eleanor gently guided, saying, the heart is too anxious. When we arrived at the hotel, The front desk glanced at our red and swollen lips and lowered our heads, but it couldn't hide the corners of her mouth. Louis Eleanor was very well prepared. He said he bought it. I asked, when? After seeing you for the first time. I carefully put away my Bentley keys and walked into the bathroom. System, get out of here. What kind of broken program do you have? Without a hint, I'm going to give you a bad review. Louis Eleanor knocked on the bathroom door. Okay, do you need my help? He shouldn't have heard my swearing just now. Right, I hurriedly said. It's almost there. The bathroom door was opened, and in the mist he made a suggestion to save water. Wash together, from the bathroom to the bed, from the bed to the window. I suspect Louis Eleanor has 10,000 steps. I was so tired that I went to sleep, and I checked my progress before I went to bed. All right, the hanging heart is finally dead. This hard bone, how is it still 0? I ate him dry and wiped it clean. All kinds of flattery, all kinds of postures. It was actually displayed as 0. When I woke up with a dry throat and a terrible pain, Louis Eleanor fed me water. Finally got some strength. I kicked him out of bed. I gasped in pain. He looked at me with some innocence, and his yaw-line, which was usually a little sharp, softened a lot. I asked him, do you like me or not? I like it, I like it. Every time he said that he liked it, it was very solemn, as if it were true. I finally couldn't hold it anymore, and was so angry that I cried, woo-hoo-hoo. If you like me, you can't be 0. You men are liars. He opened his mouth as if to say something. In the end, he just slowly spat out 3 words, I'm sorry. A man's apology is as cheap as his liking. I was so angry that I cried, and told him to get out of the way as I cried. He's really gone. I cried even louder. My phone vibrated and I glanced at the agreement for the transfer of the real estate title deed. Stopped crying. He sent a message, let me take care of the rest. I don't know what he's going to solve though. Still sent a shy emoji to the past. Okay husband, no matter what world I live in, I am a firm believer that where money is, love is there. Sincerity changes quickly, but money doesn't. Louis Eleanor told me not to go to work. I can't ask for it. It just so happened that I was desperately sleeping, and I was woken up by the phone after a day and a night's sleep. Unfamiliar number. I asked, who? My voice was so hoarse that I was startled. Louis Eleanor. I rolled over and whispered into my phone. Husband, I still want Vacheron Constantin. I haven't had since I was a kid. You can't get through to the HR call. Are you still coming back to work? Louis Eleanor interrupted my spell casting, clearly not wanting to buy me a watch. Didn't you tell me not to go to work? I don't understand it a bit. It's daytime, and Louis Eleanor is it again. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a few seconds, and then suddenly asked, did you see me at night? I said, Louis Eleanor hung up the phone. I squinted, opened the friends screen, and sent Louis Eleanor the link to the watch. Husband, I'll hold my breath until you buy me this. I rubbed my dry eyes, and the next second Louis Eleanor sent me a screenshot of the payment. My morale is boosted. Isn't it just that the progress is 0? He didn't mean it either. It must have been something I wasn't doing well enough. A few days later, however, I received a watch from Vacheron Constantin, but Louis Eleanor could not be reached. I didn't get back to the message. I called, and Louis Eleanor said to let me go to work. Louis Eleanor is not only 2 personalities during the day and night, but also on the phone and social media. Louis Eleanor on the phone would just let me go to work, but in social software, he will buy me Vacheron Constantin. I drove a Bentley downstairs to Louis Eleanor, and bumped into him. When he saw me, his eyes lit up slightly. Are you willing to come to work? I twisted my fingers. A little uncomfortable. Thank you for your watch. You're welcome. I didn't send it. Is he angry? He saw off the client and walked towards me, with a deep scratch on his neck. Did you get into a fight? I pointed to his neck. His eyes were cold. Heh, the dog bites. I thought about the task of the system, or continued to work here as an intern. The work desk was full of the clothes he had bought for me. I appear in front of him every day like Sakura, and I say a clever word and bring him a bento. He would smile faintly. I'm also slowly seeing the progress of the strategy. I always think it's weird. Why? Maybe it's because his feedback is reciprocal. and if I give him a coquette, it will increase by 1%. But he wouldn't want me to hug me. I go for a walk with him, and he's going to go up 3%. But he won't kiss me by the river. I cook for him, and he's going to go up 5%. But he won't ask me to feed him. Everything about him seems to be set up by the plot. All in all, he is like a human machine, and he is a very domineering human machine. Ask me what I should do, when, wear the clothes he gave. Don't let me drive a Bentley. Don't wear too much makeup. Don't open your mouth and shut up. Just ask for a car, a house, and money. Don't open your mouth and close your mouth to ask if you love or not. He's going to make me like the girl he's been engaged to since childhood. The progress bar kept going up, but I was getting more and more unhappy. I can't say that I'm unhappy. It's just that I have a strong sense of human machine, and I feel like I'm going to become a human machine too. Finally, one day, he finished working overtime. Let me in. He raised his eyes warily and said, "Do you want to kiss me?" I ran away. The next day, I didn't go to the office and didn't prepare a love lunch. Instead, I drove to the river. I don't know why I went to the river. I just felt like I had lost something. I couldn't find it. I looked at Vacheron Constantin on my wrist. Why is it so uncomfortable? Why is it more uncomfortable than when I couldn't see the progress of the strategy before? There has been no reply to the message sent. If you lose anything, you can't get it back. When I realized that I needed not only lots and lots of money, but also love, I thought, I'm finished. Originally, the first strategy was to go for money, but now I want love. I really want to slap myself twice and wake up this love brain. Louis Eleanor called me and asked me why I didn't come to work. Was it because it scared me yesterday? I said it was just a little unwell. He didn't ask me why I was uncomfortable, because there was no such setting in the program. As expected, the progress of the strategy dropped by 1 grid. Now the progress is 68. As I drove my Bentley back to school, a shared bike stopped me. The man fell to the ground. Don't touch porcelain, right? I hesitated, and when I saw his face, it was as if someone had struck him in the heart. It turns out that all the sense of disconnection can be explained at this moment. When I reacted, I realized that I had found what I had lost. He said, "Don't go back to school." I forced myself to calm down. With a trembling voice, he asked, "Where are you going?" "Go somewhere Louis Eleanor doesn't know." I took him to the rental house, where I was streaming before. "I'm sorry. My name is Elton Eleanor. I lied to you." I gritted my teeth and tried to hit him, but when I saw the scars on his body, I was reluctant. I said, "I hate you." He smiled slowly and said, "I miss you too." Or has it been read out of order? He explained as I drugged him. I should have died when I was young. According to the plot line, I died as the twin brother of the male protagonist. But when I saw your live broadcast, I didn't want to die. He took off his clothes, and there were more bruises than I had imagined. I resisted the urge to cry and asked, "Why?" "Because I'm beautiful." He shook his head and said, "No, I don't think this person seems to be very smart, and it shouldn't be possible to attack Louis Eleanor." I had a play-watching mentality, and I was able to catch my breath. "But that night, you mistook me. Since that day, I don't just want to see you on the air." "I'm sorry. You should have found out that I'm not the male lead." "Right." I sniffed. "Not very early, but occasionally I think Louis Eleanor at night is more silly." He laughed again, coughing up a mouthful of blood. I hurriedly took the paper. "How could you be so badly injured? Louis Eleanor is the hero of this world, and he wants to make sure that everything is in order. When he found out that I was with you, his previous pity for me turned into hostility. He wants to maintain order, and I'm destroying order. We must put each other to death, because he's the hero. I'm the one who was given up by the plot." Clara Wallace. He's the hero. I exist to bear all the damage of the plot for him. I used to think about giving up on myself, but I like you so much. I like you so much, so I don't want to give up for a while. I didn't know that Louis Eleanor had a twin brother. I just thought he had a split personality. According to the original plot, Elton Eleanor should have died long before I met Louis Eleanor. As a symbol of the male protagonist's painful background, his frail and sickly younger brother died in front of his eyes since he was a child. But he did not choose to die, and for the first time, Lewis Eleanor felt that order was being challenged. Elton Eleanor was allowed by Lewis Eleanor to hang out at night, and that night, he bumped into me. We started to fall in love at night. During the day they are separated again. So what did you have to solve before? Elton Eleanor's eyes sank. Solve the male protagonist. The rental house is rudimentary, and has no air conditioning. Elton Eleanor and I hugged each other for warmth. Elton Eleanor looked at me. His eyes darkened. There's actually another effective way to keep warm. Me, no, you body. He kissed me and said, that's part of the plan. After a while, my strategy progress went to zero. Lewis Eleanor must have sensed something. Elton Eleanor hugged me tighter. Be attentive. Early the next morning, the system suddenly went online as if it had a premonition. Host run. This is the male protagonist's sick twin brother. I cursed. Sheet system. If you don't come sooner or later, stay away later. Don't splash your blood. When I got up, my surroundings were empty. The legs are so weak. Didn't you say acting? Elton Eleanor works really hard in acting. As soon as I opened the door, I bumped into Lewis Eleanor. He approached with an anklet. Did you know that twins have empathy? Do you like it wilder? Downstairs. The Bentley rang 3 times. It's time for me and Elton Eleanor to agree. I pushed Lewis Eleanor away and ran downstairs. Lewis Eleanor stood still, as if for a moment pondering my motives. Muda said, I'm the male lead. Finally he reacted and began to chase after us. The system yelled, you dare to drive into a non-test area. Aren't you afraid of death? Non-test areas are not recognized by the system, and any avatar in any world who accidentally steps into it will be automatically destroyed by the system. Elton Eleanor pressed the gas pedal and put my hand on his lips and kissed him gently. The vehicle crashed into the fog that had not dispersed for many years, and the two people, who could only see each other at night, saw the sun. The male protagonist of this world is right behind us. Ahead, the sky is bright. In the rear, the sound of explosions was accompanied by the sound of system alarms. Alert! Alert! The male protagonist violated the rules of the world and has been destroyed. Alert! Alert! The male protagonist violated the rules of the world and has been destroyed. Elton Eleanor is long gone. So neither I nor he was hurt. When I return to the map area with him, the system will automatically identify Elton Eleanor as the male protagonist. Elton Eleanor told me I didn't need to raid him because love has long spread over countless long nights that cannot be told. End of full text. Extra. Recently, Elton Eleanor told me that he was not in good health. I glanced down, and every time I was as strong as a cow, and said that I was not in good health. He asked me to accompany him to see it, but I ignored him. A few days later, he said that he might have psychological problems. This time I think this time is right. I really think he is very perverted sometimes, especially at night. Let's go hang up a psychiatric department, he said. Actually, if only you could spend more time with me. I refused because I had been busy selling off Eleanor's properties all this time. I always feel that it is a bit troublesome to bring real estate back to the real world. After being rejected by me, he reluctantly made a number. When that day came, I didn't want to go. Grinding on the couch, I waited impatiently at the door. What the hell are you going to do? I want you to love me. When it was over, my knee-jerk reaction was that he found out that I was transferring property. No wonder he looked at me every time he wanted to speak. You shouldn't just think about transferring your property and forget to coax him. I don't have to take advantage of this change. I walked over and hugged him. You know, I need a lot of money. Then I'll have to go back to the real world. Right. Back in the real world. I have to live. Right. Elton Eleanor rubbed his neck in the socket of my neck. I'll make a lot of money. Can you take me with me? His eyes were sparkling. Probably not. I just asked if the system is feasible. The system hesitated for a second. Elton Eleanor's sparkling eyes were full of murderous intent, and he grabbed the neck of the system. My wife asked you. System, okay. Living dad. I had a fight with Elton Eleanor. He always felt that I was going to run away at any time, and not take him with him. I called him a clingy spirit, as if to prove that he wasn't a clingy person. He threw all his energy into his work. Assets are getting richer. He's getting busier and busier, and he doesn't insist that I accompany him to do this and that like before. It's not as annoying as it used to be. but I always feel that something is wrong. He seems to be really angry this time. Or has he already had a new love in the past few days? Can't money and love really coexist? I'm exclamating at the ocean. Although it's nice to look at a cold white-skinned foreign guy with exposed abs on the beach, I suddenly miss Elton Eleanor. I packed my bags and went back to China in a hurry. When standing at the door of the villa, the system is on one side, host. It's better not to. When did the system also unite with Elton Eleanor? The moment I opened the door, I had already imagined countless little mistresses screaming and hiding, and the face of Elton Eleanor scumbag. I'm mentally ready. It's a big deal. Divorce. I'm going back to the real world. When a woman's voice came, it was clear that I hadn't prepared enough, because that voice is my own. Elton Eleanor, you're a pervert. Did you record your screen during the live broadcast before? As I got closer, I heard Elton Eleanor's low gasp. Why is he watching my live video? The system covered its mouth and smiled bitterly. I told you not to come in first. Eventually, Elton Eleanor came out with red eyes, very calm. You're back. But the roots of his ears grew redder and redder, betraying his panic. It looks pitiful. Okay, will I take you on vacation next time? Don't you think I'm clingy? Systematic diagnosis. Elton Eleanor has separation anxiety. Well, I'm really mentally ill now. The system said that it was because Elton Eleanor could only live at night before, and he was the only one in his world. So once you leave me, you have severe separation anxiety. I hugged him. Well, I like clingy. The end.